How is it possible that a tiny little island nation in the tropics with almost no natural resources and limited political freedom is actually one of the wealthiest in the world? And what does it tell us about how nations become truly wealthy? Singapore is so small, you can drive across the entire country in about an hour. Despite its size and lack of resources, Singapore has a GDP per capita of over $97,000 per person, which is double that of any other country in the region. And the country's 5.4 million residents enjoy one of the highest standards of living according to the Human Development Index. So, how'd this little island get so rich? Well, while Singapore doesn't have many natural resources, it does sit in the middle of one of the most important trade routes in the world. But location alone really doesn't explain the wealth. After all, there's several other countries that are also in that area and have access to the same Southeast Asian shipping lanes. So many have tried to chalk up Singapore's success to direct government action. Things like requiring citizens to save, investing in infrastructure, and government housing policy. The problem with this explanation is that there's a lot of governments that have tried similar policies, but they don't have the same kind of economic prosperity or upward economic mobility that Singapore has, despite the fact that a lot of those other countries have advantages Singapore does not. So consider this. Until 1965, Singapore was actually just a part of Malaysia. After gaining independence from the UK in the 1950s, the Malaysian government focused on implementing widespread government control over the economy and imposed a series of affirmative action programs that favored Malays over ethnic minorities. Now, Singapore opposed both of these measures, and the divide grew so large that the Malaysian parliament voted unanimously to kick out Singapore in 1965. The new independent Singapore, led by Lee Kuan Yew, focused on things like preventing crime and corruption, protecting property rights, sound fiscal and monetary policy, legal transparency, and free trade, all of which are critical for a robust economic environment. But it's when you take a closer look at the government position toward overall economic policy that you see major distinctions between itself and other nations both in the region and the rest of the world. Just take a look at the tax structure in Singapore. The top personal income tax rate stands at just 22%. They have a corporate tax rate of 17%, which is very low. No estate tax and no capital gains tax. To give you an idea of what all of this means, the overall individual tax burden in Singapore is half of what it is in the United States. Inflation, half of what it is in the United States. And when it comes to government spending and deficits, Singapore has a deficit 20 times lower than the US. This business-friendly environment has led to explosive economic growth, the scale of which is truly astounding. Today, the per-person income in Singapore is 300 times over the global average, and it has one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. So, while good governance has certainly contributed to Singapore's success, it's been its emphasis on creating the freest economy in the world, which has empowered entrepreneurs and the people of Singapore to prosper and thrive.